Okay, thank you for coming here today. I'm going to be talking about measuring your academic output, and take this with a certain grain of salt. These are sort of my opinions and things in the literature, a mixture of both, okay? But it gives you some ideas. Now, the big questions right off the bat. What are measures of academic output? It's what to count, why quality matters, and are there statistical measures? And there are some bibliometric measures of quality that can be applied. What to count is your most critical question. This varies by department and by discipline. Start, of course, ask your chair. Talk to your department's tenure promotion committee. Ask other faculty in your area. They'll have the best ideas what exactly matters here at UTEP. So pay attention to that. Ask around. That's where you start, okay? Now, grants and grant applications, this is a major part of being a Tier 1 research university. The type of grant will vary by department. Some departments, it's big research grants from NSF, NIH. Other departments, it's a lot of local grants and smaller things. A lot of pedagogy grants. Part of the whole grant process also is mentoring research students, both graduate students and undergraduates. We have a growing undergraduate research collection that we're working on, and this is become an important part of the UTEP experience, is for even undergraduates can get experience doing research. Now, these are some sort of overviews. Science, engineering, psychology, business, academic research journal articles, scholarly books, and scholarly book chapters are of primary importance. Conference presentations, while important, especially for networking purposes, are sort of considered secondary output measures, except in certain fast developing areas such as computer science. And that's within science, engineering, I'd say psychology, and business. Working as an outside consultant in your academic area. Like I know a number of the geologists, a number of the education faculty work as outside consultants. The importance of pedagogy-related articles will vary by your department. That's why you talk to people in your department. You don't want to spend all your time working on pedagogy articles and publishing some pedagogy articles and find out that, oh, your tenure committee weights those a lot less than research articles, and they want to know where were your research articles, okay? So talk to your department. In humanities areas, such as history, philosophy, musicology, religion, scholarly books and academic journal articles are important. Conferences can be more important than in the STEM disciplines, okay? The importance of pedagogy-related articles can vary by department. It depends exactly what is their focus as a department. You get into health sciences, and I'm talking about kinesiology, physiology, the areas over in the College of Nursing, College of Health Sciences. You should look physical therapy, academic research articles, book chapters. But in many departments, pedagogy articles are also quite important. So in areas such as kinesiology, you're both talking about articles on how to do certain activities, okay? Or in physical therapy, can be quite important, not just research studies. Conference presentations' importance will vary by the department even by the specialty within the department. Now, in College of Education, pedagogy-related books and articles are quite important. This is sort of what they do. They're teaching people how to teach, okay? So pedagogy can be quite important. Research articles are important if you're applying for major national grants. For local things, and I've been involved in a few of those, then it's not necessarily they're looking for research articles, they're looking more what is applicable to this area, okay? Like in the school systems here. Conference presentations are more important typically than in the STEM fields. Now, all of this, the importance of different areas does come to play when you actually start looking at trying to put numbers on things, okay? In performing arts, creative performances and works are important. Pedagogy and technique-related articles. Workshops, especially invited workshops at conferences. Scholarly books. The academic research articles may actually be quite a bit secondary in your department if you're doing performing arts, okay? Now, why does quality matter? It's a major part of your academic reputation, especially outside of UTEP. It is also part of your department's academic reputation. Substantial competitive research grants are often based on the quality, not just the quantity of your previous research output. And something you should be aware of if you're going to apply for national grants. When proposal review committees are meeting, they will actually be looking at, on a current basis while they're doing the reviews, they may come down to be looking at 16 submissions and think, wow, 6 of these look pretty darn good. Then they're going to look at your previous research output a little harder to decide, okay, but the granting agency says they're only going to probably fund 2 or 3 of these. So we have to rank them. And there are other proposal groups. I've done some reviewing at NSF, and there's a large number of groups doing these reviews. And then doing rankings, statistical rankings of the quality of the overall proposal, which does include us looking at your previous research output. And when I've done it, every time we've had a couple proposals that sounded pretty good, but we've gone and looked at the quality of the research output by principal investigators, and we've decided, well, they don't really quite, this is a totally new area for them, and their previous work has not been very well cited. And so we ended up in the end downgrading that proposal. Another aspect that helps you, quality, helps you obtain subsequent publishing opportunities, whether that is academic articles, books, invited presentations at workshops, potentially being an editor for a major journal. This all grows out of your academic reputation. Now, can you do statistical measures of this stuff? Okay, when you get into it. These are often called bibliometric measures of quality. Usually a lot of them start with looking at citation impact factors. Overall, that's defined as number of citations divided by number of articles published. If you're looking at a journal, you typically will be looking at, okay, articles they published in the last 2 years, how often have those articles been cited for the journal? So it's not just your particular articles and your things, but you also end up looking somewhat at what was the quality of the journal you were publishing in. Okay, now, citation patterns vary widely by discipline and even by research specialty within a discipline. So you can't even just say, oh, we'll apply a particular citation number to work in biology. No, because work in the NIH portion, the biochemical portion of biology, in microbiology, they cite everything that relates to the research that they publish. By doing that, citation numbers overall as a discipline get much higher than something like zoology, which ends up being very, very, very specific and narrowly focused as far as citations. You get much lower citation numbers. So you have to know your discipline. So even if you're doing looking at what you're doing, and of course, newer researchers will have fewer articles, usually a smaller breadth of articles. They will have fewer citations made to those articles. Okay, that's normal. Your citation counts go up as you publish more articles. Okay, but remember they vary widely by discipline, and this is where you come back into that whole issue of what is your discipline focused on. If it's primarily academic articles, and it's very important when you write the article to cite everything relating to it in previous research, then you'll typically have higher citation numbers. On the other hand, if it's published an article, like in education quite often, well, there can be a lot. There can be 500 articles a year published on, let's say, English as a second language and teaching this and its impacts in education, okay? But they probably overlap a lot. The citation numbers would be much smaller. And that is what happens. Engineering is high. Education tends to be low. And so you can't compare someone in education to someone in engineering looking at a bibliometric measure. You have to look within your discipline and your specialty. Now, the average number of citations is a simple impact factor. That can be influenced by a few exceptional articles from years ago. Sometimes even from your graduate research. Or maybe even I've seen it where it's not even the graduate research published when you were there, but the articles published in this couple subsequent years, which you are listed as a co-author, but the more broader, impactful article was actually published 2 years later, and all of a sudden you get, wow, a whole bunch of citations from a piece of research you were actually only involved in early on, okay? So better thing is you look at what have you done lately. Now, another way to look at things is something called the H factor, and a couple other companies like Elsevier have started their own versions of this. Simple definition for the H factor. If you rank your articles in how many times they've been cited. If you have 12 articles and each article has been cited 12 times or more, your H factor equals 12. It doesn't matter how many articles you have published in total. It doesn't matter that your two most heavily cited articles were cited over 100 times. It does favor researchers who publish more articles over a longer period of time. It also favors researchers who publish in academic research journals, okay? Such as myself. I actually have never worked at a library that required me to do academic publishing, okay? Some that required conference presentations, but not scholarly articles. So I have an article from graduate school from my chemical physics thesis, cited 15 times. That's pretty darn good in chemical physics. But I only have one. So my H factor would be 1. Now, as a hobby on the weekends, I've published hundreds of articles, statistical analysis and historical analysis in various swimming publications. These are all behind paywalls. These articles get looked at by thousands, or in some cases even hundreds of thousands, a couple 100,000 people. But none of it is academic. None of it actually, rarely something might appear as a reference that someone refers to it in an academic article, but that would be pretty unusual. And because sports history statistical analysis is not a big thing for the academic circles. But so you might publish a lot of things, but all they would count for it the most is for your service requirement, if they're of that sort of nature that they really were magazine articles, okay? And I'm not talking about you publish in National Geographic, that'd be sort of big and huge, but just small specialty magazines. So these statistical factors are looking at academic research, okay? Now where to look for this? You can search in the Web of Knowledge. It's more commonly known as the Web of Science. It covers not just science and engineering, health sciences, it covers humanities, social sciences, along with that, okay? Has very high quality information, pulls things from about 13,000 publications, over 230 specialized research areas. It's a large but selective journal collection. Now, one issue you can run into, and a number of UTEP authors may have run into this, you have to be sure to have all your name variants. Whether you're searching here, or Google Scholar, or in Elsevier Scopus, you have to be sure to get your name variants down if you've published under different names, okay? Now, in Web of Science, you can improve the completeness of your data using their researcher ID methodology to include your name variants, and you can pull together all your articles out of their database, okay? Now, another way to do this is you can get an ORCID ID. I recommend if you don't have one, you should get an ORCID ID. It's at orcid.org. It's a unique researcher identifier you can register for, and you can keep this ID for your entire career. And increasingly, in many databases, this ID can be used to uniquely link all of your research output in that database. You can search a database by ORCID ID, okay? Not just by author. So that's one of the key things I would ask a new researcher, and actually even a graduate student who's thinking of continuing on in academia. I encourage them to get an ORCID ID, okay? That can be extremely useful. Now, how do you search in Google Scholar? There's a professor out in Washington who's put up Publisher Parish. It's under harzing.com. And it's an app you download, and this allows you to do citation searching on the Google Scholar database. It also does cross-reference searching on a number of the other databases, but you can't really usually link very well to those other databases out of the Publisher Parish search, but it can tell you where else you can go look. Now, by doing it on Google Scholar, it is the largest group of journals, but it is not truly an exhaustive collection. It usually gives you the largest number of citations. Now, one of the problems is not all journals allow Google Scholar to index their articles down to the cited references level. And that's a key thing. Google Scholar, even if they're allowed to look and see what articles were published in a journal, but if they can't go and They can't have, don't let Google Scholar go down and look at all the full text and the cited references at the end. They can't get the citation counts that are at the end of that article. And the problem is that means you might not publish in that journal, but you published in a journal that articles in this journal, in a journal that's not, doesn't have their cited references listed in Google Scholar, but you know, oh, people from this other journal cite your articles, but those citations won't show up in Google Scholar if Google Scholar can't index that journal down to the cited references level, okay? That can be an issue. So you end up with some odd little holes and you're somewhat unaware of them in Publish or Perish software. Now, Scopus from Elsevier is another big one. And there are a number of specialized ones and specialized areas starting up as they do more citation tracing. So keep an eye on your professional societies. This is a fast developing area. Now, UTEP does not subscribe to Scopus. It's quite expensive. Can you access their citation analysis data? Yes, but in a limited form. You register with the Elsevier development site. You then can download citation data for individuals. What you do is you register with them. You go through, they have some training apps in there. You figure out how to send them a search on a person or a search on a university. They then send you back the data, okay? So it's a little awkward and there is a learning curve involved in this. Now, Publish or Perish does do a quick search on Scopus. You can get an idea whether it's worth your while to go search on Scopus, okay? Now, they index a larger journal collection than Web of Science. And Scopus provides more consistent indexing than Google Scholar, okay? Another access option for Scopus is a number of UTEP faculty are editors for an Elsevier publication. If you know one that is, they probably have individual access to Scopus because they use it while they're doing their editorial reviews for Elsevier. Now, problems and limitations of doing citation analysis. The variations in citation usage and frequency, even within a discipline, zoology versus microbiology. Most conferences do not have fully published proceedings, so the citation data is usually not available. There are inconsistencies when analyzing citation data from non-journal sources, okay? There's no sort of standard format. Do you get down to the book chapter level or not? Better indexers will get down to the book chapter level. A lot of them just index fairly high up in the book. There's also an intrinsic statistical bias favoring more experienced researchers. Basically, your numbers improve with age. That's the age of you doing research. So, what to count? To summarize, ask in your department. They'll know best, okay? Why does quality matter? It's a big part of your academic reputation and UTEP's academic reputation. How to measure it? You can do citation analysis. You can look at Web of Science. You can look in Google Scholar. You can look in Scopus. Some of the societies also have started doing their own indexing. Computer science, so they index conference proceedings in quite some detail and actually have full text. You actually, when you do a conference paper, you actually submit the full paper. That's the issue with many conferences. You don't submit the full paper. You submit an abstract. If they don't get the full paper, no, that conference isn't going to get cited references. If you're in a discipline that doesn't do it, then the conference citations are going to get lost, okay? Now, you want more information about citation analysis, including how the various measures journal quality, we do have a LibGuide up on our LibGuide page, libguides.utep.edu/JCR. So you can find additional information through the LibGuides. So thank you for being here today. Do you have any questions? Let me see if I can. Okay, well, if there's no questions, thank you for being here, and we will see you next week. Okay. A measurement standard for social sciences. Okay, let's ask. A standard per se, no. It ends up all three, Web of Science, Google Scholar, and Scopus, do search an extensive amount of social science journals. Okay. So your best thing is to compare, if you want to get an idea, is probably to search in JCR. See what average citation rates are for the journals in social sciences. So you can go into Web of Science, pull out all of their social science journals in your discipline, and then take a look at the list to see how often they're cited. That'll give you a good ballpark to start with. Okay? Likewise for humanities. Humanities gets trickier. Okay? In humanities, you run into a big issue with respect to the whole conference proceedings issue. Are they indexing the conferences down in detail? That people have started making people submit their full papers so they can actually have published proceedings more often in conferences, but it is by no means standard. Okay. For the academic journals, like if you're in musicology, yes, or art history, yes, you'll find those in Web of Science, in Scopus, in Google Scholar. I probably use Web of Science and Google Scholar, and it would give you some ideas, but that only pulls out the hardcore, the scholarly publishing in scholarly books and scholarly journal articles, okay? The conference proceedings and the whole issue of how do you measure performance? And what does that matter? That's why talk to your department, okay? They'll be able to tell you, oh, we really like you to present at workshops at big conferences, state or national conferences. You can present teaching workshops and things. We want you to do a lot of pedagogy articles. Pay attention to what they say. In some high-end music schools, they want you to do a whole bunch of concert performances and stuff, okay? Big time. And even as a graduate student, they want you to do that. So it really varies a lot by department. Talk to the different departments. They have different standards on this, okay? But they'll give you the best idea. And you don't want to find, oh, you mean I shouldn't have spent my time doing performances and find you really want me to do academic research articles. The department knows best. Okay, any other questions? Okay. Well, we will see everybody next week then. Okay. See you next Wednesday. Bye-bye. Thanks, Carlos.